181. Let's get to the third Purge film, which is the Purge Election Year, which came out in 2016. Written and directed once again by James DeMonaco. Stars Frank Grillo, Elizabeth Mitchell, Mike Letty Williamson, J.J. Soria, Betty Gabriel, a few others. And the synopsis is: former Police Sergeant Barnes becomes head of security for Senator Charlie Roan, a presidential candidate targeted for death on Purge Night due to her vow to eliminate the Purge. This one I saw in theaters. I'm pretty sure I'd seen Anarchy at that point, so I was more excited to go out and see this in the theater. And I thought the idea was pretty unsettling about it being called the Purge Election Year, and there being these Purge tourists coming from other countries and all these really scarily real ideas. I mean, it's exaggerated in this, but you could unfortunately see people doing that in this day and age. So I thought it had a lot of potential for sure. And I've only seen it twice now. I just rewatched it for this. I think this is by far, well, maybe not by far, but definitely my least favorite of the franchise so far. I think all of the best moments are in the trailer. Not to say that it spoils the movie, but there's truly not that many memorable moments visually, conceptually, thematically that we don't just see flares of in the trailer. And so having seen the trailers beforehand, and especially on rewatch, it feels totally like a marketing gimmick. That's all it was there for, and was just trying to fill in seats. Maybe I'm wrong there, maybe that's too harsh, but watching it now especially, I'm like, yeah, it's not very good at all. I think it's borderline terrible. While I like that it takes place mostly out in the streets, it feels like it takes the Purge Anarchy and everything I liked about it, the writing, the camera work, the characters, the designs, and took it to 11 out of 10, and not at all in a good way. These characters, besides Frank Grillo, basically are so obnoxious. The writing, the dialogue is so ridiculously over the top and just grating. I don't like spending time with these characters. They're either too cartoony or the performances aren't very good. And while the whole election year, considering we're in an election year right now, which is very scary for a number of reasons, the political stuff in this with the actual politicians themselves, as well as the ideas that they're trying to get across, come across as so cartoony, really inauthentic, and I'm never buying anything that these people are saying. So that whole aspect of the movie, which is a big part, is really bad. And then, honestly, I think the worst, most offensive thing about this movie is one of the main plot lines with this store owner and these kids. This, to me, is the epitome of, or the best showcase of how lazy writing can be. Because basically we spend so much time in this movie where these Purge girls, like these teenagers or college kids, whatever it is, they want revenge on this store owner because they tried to shoplift a candy bar and they got caught. And so they come back on Purge Night, which is, I guess, the same day, to try and purge this guy. And it's so overdone. And I'm thinking, it's called the Purge Election Year. And one of the only things you could think of is a purger who is a criminal because she was trying to shoplift and she wants revenge on the person who caught her. It's like, that's all you got? Really? Because that idea alone, or at its core, could be interesting, where in this day and age, there are so many crimes, especially when it comes to violence, where there will be a moment of disrespect or disagreement, and then suddenly, oh, here, I'm going to take my gun out and shoot you. Or we're going to get into a fight and violence ensues. And I think that idea is modern in some ways and feels fresh, but this movie is not nearly clever enough or subtle enough to actually really be hitting that on the head, because that's something I've really thought about for years and years, and I'm like grabbing at any straws that I can to find something of worth in this movie. So I think that whole storyline, and the main girl, is so obnoxious. Like, I don't mind the design of them, where she's in the prom dress or wedding dress, whatever it is, And I like the car that they drive where it's covered in Christmas lights. I think all that is pretty cool, but it just goes on so long. I don't care about the store owner. I don't care about these girls. The motivation there gives me nothing to really latch onto. Not to say I would sympathize with her, but nothing of worth there. So that right off the bat, I remember in the theater thinking, this is so bad, and immediately took me out of the movie. And then getting back to the election year aspect of the movie, so you see in the trailers largely and in the posters where there are these iconic patriotic symbols of America as being made into Purge costumes, like the Statue of Liberty one, the Abraham Lincoln one, and like Uncle Sam, whoever else it might be. So, which I think that is a really cool idea for a movie. But it is purely a visual tease. I feel like you barely even see those people, see those costumes. It's just largely in passing. And then, spoiler, a lot of those characters are killed in a certain scene. So then they're gone for the rest of the movie. And I'm like, really, you couldn't incorporate that a little bit more into this overarching story, or to find something more meaningful to discuss with that, or even just have more screen time with them so we can enjoy crazy, creepy designs of characters. Also, the idea of purge tourism, where, as I said at the beginning, it's people from other countries who want to participate in the purge and they come to America so they could do that. I think that is a really pretty new idea. Like, even when I first saw it, I was like, that's a wild idea. And there would be so many people who would either want to participate in the violence itself, or they'd want to be like, oh, here, I'm going to live stream on Instagram and show you the purge and, just make money off it, essentially. I think all that totally believable, but the issues with this franchise is it's just touched on. It's really, and I was talking about this with someone fairly recently, where I find that these movies, even the ones I really enjoy, I think they're more interesting to talk about and think about than actually watch. And that's especially the case with this one, where there's so many little nuggets of things. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting or really scary or wild, but then it's just out of your brain. There's no time to linger there and to sit with it. It's all Blumhouse, the stereotypical Blumhouse, scare you, cool mask, let's get to the next one. And that's really it. So very, very big wasted opportunity. The whole sacrifice stuff towards the end with the politicians I think once it gets into that, I don't know what it is, like a warehouse or wherever it is, like where they're in that third act mainly, it just goes on so long. It drags. The writing is brutal. But besides that, the score is good. It's directed decently enough. I think it overall looks all right. And I also like the actress who plays the politician, and that idea, especially now where we're very close to the election and crazy things are happening. I mean, we recently just had an assassination attempt, and the lengths that people are willing to go. And hey, if a politician has this idea or not this idea, or it's not far enough, who knows what the heck might happen. So it really is kind of like the Wild Wild West right now. And I just wish that the movie actually got into that more. So, yeah, I don't think it'll ever rise above being my least favorite of the 5, at least so far. I hope they don't get worse than this one, but this is definitely the low point. So that is a 1.5 out of 5.